because he had an in the entire time I was watching, and that turned him on. And also the prospect of the pain that would come when these clothespins were released. Hi, this is Mike Balaban with another episode of BAMMER Talks. Today I'd like to do a couple of things. First, just to give you a reminder that starting this coming Thursday, by the time you get this, it will already be underway, my second ever photo exhibition of my vintage photographs from the 70s, 80s, and 90s will be taking place at Giacomo Moretti Arts, a gallery in Palm Springs, California. I would love to see you there. If you're anywhere nearby the area, please come. The second thing I want to talk about is Folsom Street Fair. It is a one-day event on Sunday, the final Sunday of September each year, in the lower part of San Francisco, the south of Market area, otherwise known as Soma, which used to be extremely dicey back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. It was very working class, somewhat ethnic Filipino, down by the docks, some crime, etc. And I can remember going there it was either on my first visit in 76 or my second in 79, and going down to that area, which was known as being the epicenter for a number of leather, hardcore, kind of gay men's clubs, one of which was the Eagle, and the other was a bar called the End Up. And I can recall visiting the End Up on a night which was underwear night there, and being quite titillated by seeing all the guys in their drawers, and being in my own drawers that evening. At any event, that neighborhood got turned around with a lot of effort and focus by the city, the gay community, and others. And one way they did it was by creating the original Folsom Street Fair in 1984, the year that George Orwell warned us about in his book, 1984. And that was the first year. It's now operated 44 years since. The 45th year is happening right now. It began as an entirely leather fetish, bondage, BDSM-focused event with really seriously hardcore leather fans in attendance and all kinds of things going on. And over the 40-odd years, it's grown tremendously and also diversified. It's grown in the sense that the attendance now is pretty much, from what I understand, evenly split between straight and gay. It's become so widely known that a lot of straights want to come see it. And I think that may have diluted a little bit the sexual heat of the event, but I could be wrong. At the same time, there are still all kinds of things going on in broad daylight. People certainly naked, to some degree a little bit of furtive sex, and you get a lot of gawkers. And meanwhile, you've got entertainment, you've got music, you've got sexual toys and paraphernalia being sold. You've got people showing off in leather and without leather, showing off their physiques. I have never been an habitué of the leather community. I have no particular interest in it. I used to joke, when I see a handsome guy or I'm attracted to, the first thing I want to do is get him out of his clothes, not into leather. But eventually I got involved with a partner for 12 years, and Jeff was a big leather queen. And as a result, I accompanied him a number of times to International Mr. Leather, the annual contest for the Mr. Leather of the country in Chicago on Memorial Day weekend. We did that a few times in the early 2000s. And then finally in 2008 and 2009, 2 years in a row, he talked me into going to Folsom Street, where I had a fun time. And then in 2010, we went on his 50th birthday celebration to Turkey and Berlin, ending up at Folsom Street, Berlin, the offshoot of Folsom Street Fair that takes place in the first week of September, and had a lot of fun there. And as an aside, there's also a Folsom Street East, which takes place in New York, down in the meatpacking district during Pride Week, at the beginning of Pride Week in June. And that's kind of a smaller contained area, but it's also fun. So we went in 2008, 2009, just to give you a flavor. On one of the years, I think 2008, we walked over to a grandstand, and there was a performer up on it against a pole with his hands tied behind his back, and he had clothespins going up and down his right and left sides over his nipples. And that must have created some pain, some discomfort. But there's a certain excitement for some people in the BDSM community about being filled with pain. And similarly, he had ropes around him. He was all bound up in addition to being clothespinned. And the aim was at some point, because he had an erection the entire time I was watching, and so were equally mixed straights and gays in the crowd. He had an erection because he knew he was being watched, and that turned him on. And also the prospect of the pain that would come when these clothespins were released and a rush of blood came into those areas of his body, and the excitement of knowing everybody was getting off on watching him. And so he had a constant erection. And I took a couple of photographs of it, and we'll show them here minus the interesting parts. Maybe if you write me, I can send you those unblurred versions. The other thing was there were, and still are apparently, some evidence of cages which are swung by a chain in the air, and inside it are people who are caged and bound. And so there's a thrill in the crowd in watching this, but also a thrill in the performers at being watched. And so this is the kind of stuff that goes on right and left. And we arrived, my partner was well-built and attractive, and the two of us attracted a certain amount of attention and got to meet a lot of really handsome, well-built guys ourselves. And so it was a lot of fun kind of mingling and participating. Again, I don't have any particular flair for the leather aspect of it, but I'm never turned off by good-looking men, and it was a lot of fun. I think Folsom's lost some of its intensity in terms of the BDSM focus. But another thing is happening, as I understand it. In addition to having spread more into the straight community as a tourist attraction, there is a transition going on. You've heard of pups, and in fact, probably will be another week or two after you see this, but I have an interview with a pup that I'll be featuring a description of what that's all about. The pup community, which are humans wearing hoods or snouts and acting like dogs and letting their inner dog out. The pup community has grown quite popular and expansive all over the country. Here in San Diego, the group that I met with, there are about 150 at least in the organized group, and others that are apart from that. And the pups apparently are in the process of a merger with the furries, those people who love to wear animal costumes, dogs, horses, whatever. And they're combining the pups with the furries, and they're calling themselves anthros, as in anthropomorphic, human. And apparently Folsom's got quite an element of anthros and pups and furries, in addition to the whole leather focus. There's another event which supposedly is a little bit more pure and like the original Folsom Street. Is called Up Your Alley, or Dory Alley. D-O-R-E is the name of a street. And it's in the last weekend of July in San Francisco. And serious leather files apparently tend to go there a little more than they do Folsom these days. But take your pick. They're both fun. They're both at a good time of year weather-wise. San Francisco is always a beautiful city to visit, and there are always a lot of hot men around. And what's wrong with that, huh? Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this. That happens today. By the time you see this, it will be 1 week late, but go next year. Thanks for watching another episode of BAMMER Talks. This is Mike Balaban.